Well, hello there, and welcome again to another Mid Ulster Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night lecture. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If this is not your first time, you're still welcome as well. Welcome back for another week of interesting topics and everything else that goes with it, and chat and questions, and there we go. So tonight, you may have been made aware through our different social media and everything else. We now have a link to our YouTube channel. We have over 100 subscribers, so that challenge worked. If you're on YouTube, youtube.com/MUARC media, MUARCMEDIA, will bring you straight to our channel where all these lectures can be found when you have nothing else to watch on the TV. So this evening we have the wonderful George, GI4SJQ, homegrown, very much homegrown talent. And George helps organize this whole monster that is our Tuesday night lecture series. And this evening he's going to be talking about Radio Sport 101 and the setting up of N1MM. And who knows where else we'll go with that. So, or what else will be thrown in. George, how we doing?
Not so bad, Dave. I don't think I've ever been described in those terms before. So that's very kind of you.
Well, they're all true. They're all true.
Hopefully I won't fall off the chair or anything like that. So I'll just get my screen sharing going here. No, that's the one I want there. So hopefully that's going to come through to you.
Indeed, yep.
Okay, and I'll just start this. So Radio Sport 101 and N1MM setup. And the sort of subtitle is the basics on contesting. Give it a go. You know, try it once and see what you think. You never know, you might actually like it. So where can contesting or radio sport lead you, or what is radio sport? There's a bit of a question. So used to be called contesting, and it still is, but you'll see a lot of mention now of radio sport instead of contesting. And when you look at what is involved with sport, sport has rules, sports have categories, sports involve competing with other people and against other people, and sports have awards. And whether it's athletics or football or whatever, you know, those are all components of sport. And contesting, as we used to call it, or radio sport as now the magazines call it, all have those components. So it is a sport, and except we're using radio. An example of that is the WRTC, the World Radio Sport Team Championship. It's run over the same weekend once every 4 years. The last one was in Germany in 2018. And there were 63 two-person teams from 27 regions around the world, and they represented 32 different countries in total. The contest, it happens as part of the IARU contest every year, second weekend in July, runs for 24 hours. These people come in from all over the world. There's hundreds of amateurs in the background supporting them. They're set up in a tent in a field. They all have identical antennas, same height of mast. They bring their own radio equipment, their own computers. They set up and they operate for the 24 hours of the IARU contest. In 2018, it was won by a team that consisted of LY9A and LY4L. They had a total number of contacts of 5,139 QSOs, 3,617 were CW, 1,522 were SSB. They worked a total in 24 hours of 274 DXCCs. Now these guys are all 100 watts. They're not running 1.5 kilowatt amplifiers. They're not running massive antennas. They try to level, every time they run it, they try to level the playing field as regards antennas, locations, and what's provided to them. And it's all invigilated and scored and announced. And as you can see in the photograph there, you've got some of the winners of the WRTC 2018. And WRTC is something that any amateur can take part in. If you submit logs to the contest organizers, certain contests are qualifying events, and you will score points against that. And there's a leader table for every country that has amateur radio in it. So you can go off and you can look at the leader table for Northern Ireland, see who the top stations are, see where you sit compared to them. So it's not just destroying the bands, as some people seem to think about it. You know, there's a lot of competition there, a lot of skill, which we'll get into shortly. So where did I start with contesting? Well, I got licensed in March '83, and up until 2002, I really didn't get involved much in contesting. I would have got on and made maybe 5 or 10 QSOs in a contest, maybe 20 at the most. The contest that always sticks out in my mind is the Bermuda contest, which was run every year. And some of the guys who've been on HF a bit longer will maybe remember the Bermuda contest. The prize for it was a holiday in Bermuda if you won your category. So it always intrigued me, and it was always a good opportunity to work lots of stateside stations. But other than that, really didn't get involved in HF contesting at all. That sort of changed after CQ Worldwide WPX contest in March 2002. I got up on the Sunday morning, came into the shack at about 7 o'clock, turned on 10 meters. We were somewhere in the middle of a good cycle, solar cycle, and I got on and I made a load of contacts, and I actually was able to establish a few times a frequency and start calling CQ. And it's a bit of a buzz when you have stations coming to you instead of you chasing after them, and it was good fun. So that sort of got me started and got me encouraged to try it a bit more, and built up, tried to improve my antennas, tried to improve my efficiency of operating, tried different contests, digital contests, CW contests, and sort of been working at it more or less constantly ever since. Some years are better than others, but I get a kick out of it. I enjoy it, and it's a good way to get a bit of practice and get on the air. So what we're going to cover tonight, well, we're going to look at why you want to bother with contesting. There's a lot of folks that would say it ruins the bands, and certainly it generates a lot of activity on the bands, and you'll find if you've been listening on 10 meters, it could be quite quiet, and the contest starts up, and all of a sudden there's stations all over the place. It brings a lot of activity to the bands. We're going to look at what contests you should enter, trying to make a good choice about that, what sort of equipment you need to get involved. Finally, we've got hopefully a practical demonstration that will work of N1MM Plus software, which is the software that I've been using since 2002 for contesting. And finally, just to point out that this is a generalization. It's not a substitute for going off and reading the rules, understanding them and following them. So, few things that you'll hear mentioned on the air, you'll see in software, you'll hear people talk about. You'll hear people talk about queues. Well, a queue is a QSO or a contact. You'll hear about S&P. You'll see that as an option in software. It stands for search and pounce. That means that you are searching for signals, stations to contact, and when you hear a station, if you haven't already worked them, you give them a call and see if you can make a contact with them. You'll see the term run, Running means not that you're running away from anything, but you're on one frequency, you establish a clear frequency, and you start calling CQ, and the stations come to you. For anybody that's a CW operator, that is much more effective now than it used to be. Used to be you had to hopefully have somebody spot you on the cluster, and then you'd get a bit of a pile up on you. Now with the reverse beacon network, as soon as you start calling CQ, that's spotted all across the world, and you have stations coming to your frequency very, very quickly. A few other things you'll see in various software packages. You have SO1V. That means single operator, one VFO. Most standard radios that, like an ICOM 7300, that don't have a sub receiver would be classed as single operator, one VFO. SO2V, single operator, two VFOs. Finally, SO2R, single operator, two radios, where you have a single operator running two radios on two different frequencies and making contacts at the same time. A few other terms. A dupe is the term used for a duplicate contact. So I work Dave in a contest there, and then 10 minutes later he calls me again. I will log him because it takes too long to say, no, I've worked you before. I just log him again, but that's classed as a duplicate. You only get the points for the first contact. A term that's used in N1MM is SMN, or ESM, sorry, enter sends message. That's used in CW a lot to automate the process of the contacts. It speeds things up. Another one that you'll come across is the master SCP. It's the database of known call signs that have appeared in previous contests. You can download that and update it. And there's an option within the software that gives you a partial check on a call sign. So if you're typing a call sign and you miss a letter, it will suggest what that call sign could be. A few other terms that you'll see in contest rules. You've got multi-operator. You've got single operator first, SO, single operator. That's one person operating the station for the full period of the contest. You've got multi-single. So that's multi-operator with only one signal being transmitted. You've got multi-two, where you've got multi-operator and two signals at the same time on different bands. And then you've got multi-multi. Multi-operator and a station for each contest band, all running at the same time. If you go and look up W3LPL or K3LR, they're two of the big stations in the States. They always operate multi-multi, and they will be running all contest bands at the same time. So top band 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 meters are all individual stations with individual antennas, massive big stations. So they're the multi-multis. So that's some of the common terms you'll come across. So radio sport or contesting, why bother? Well, these are my reasons for bothering. It's a good opportunity to work more countries, and you get shack wallpaper for that. Whether it's DXCC or Worked All States or Worked All Zones or some of the CQ awards or the RSGB awards, you can use those contacts to apply for certificates and awards. It's a challenge. You can challenge yourself, you can challenge others. Builds a bit of friendly competition. I scored 100,000 points in CQ Worldwide last year. Let's see if I can score 120,000 points, see if I can beat last year's score. That sort of thing. A lot of guys get on the air just to give away some points. They never enter a log into the contest. And entering a log, even if you're not interested in the contest, is very useful because it can be used as a check log. If I am in a contest and I work a call sign and that guy only comes on and works me and doesn't work anybody else in the contest, it could be that it's classified as I got that call sign incorrect. If he went off and he worked, and I'll use Dave as an example because he's directly below me in the video feed. If he worked Dave as well and then went off, And Dave submitted a check log. Well, there's 2 people working the same call sign, and it's more likely to be a valid contact, a valid QSO in the eyes of the contest organisers. Contesting is a very good way of self-training in radio communications. It teaches you to be a better communicator. It teaches you to become more efficient and more effective as an operator. You can improve your skills. You can learn new skills. Some of these skills are directly relevant to amateur radio emergency services, like in the UK RANET or in the States ARIES, because you're learning to operate efficiently, effectively, speak clearly. You're listening to weak, noisy signals and pulling call signs out. You know, those are good skills to have if you're involved in emergency services work, because you don't you're going to get a message probably the first time. You're not going to need to repeat it, and so those are good skills. It teaches you discipline. Just getting on the air and getting involved, as I said previously, it can be good fun. There's also the option that if you can't beat them, join them. As mentioned, contesting is fun, especially when you get stations calling you. And I enjoy that, especially on CW. It's good fun. Just being able to pick parts of call signs out and make contacts. There's a whole thing that's been brought up recently called the gamification of ham radio. We talk about how to get young people involved in amateur radio, and contesting. Young people like computer games. They like that whole side of things. Well, contesting is a real life game. You can use online scoring to see how you're doing compared to other stations. Some people stream their contest station live on YouTube. I know if William's here tonight, he might remember the weekend we did CQ Worldwide 2 years ago. We were in the shack down at the radio club just before the contest. We worked a Polish station, and he said to us he was live streaming from his shack the contest. So different things like that. A lot of the new technologies all coming into it. Finally, if you get really serious and you have a really good station and you become really skilled, well, it is a sport, and there's a chance every 4 years you might qualify to head off to WRTC in 2 years' time. Hopefully, it's booked for Italy. Okay, so those are some of my ideas and reasons for getting involved in contesting. So these are some of the certificates that you can get. And if you like shack wallpaper, they're a great way of colouring up the shack. We've got the ARRL SSB DX contest, top left. Middle top, we've got the IARU World Championship. RTTY Roundup in January, it's an ARRL sponsored contest. And finally, down bottom left, we have one from 2014 CQ Worldwide DX contest, SSB. So those are the sort of certificates that you can get. Most of them now, they're downloadable, but if you win a category, whether that's your country or your zone or whatever, then you normally get one through the post. So it can be nice to put on the wall and show your achievements. So contests, there's lots to choose from. Most national societies will run them. So RSGB, ARRL, DARC in Germany, virtually all national societies will run contests. Some organizations as well will run contests. CW Ops, for example, was in the news at the weekend. They have a contest coming up weekend after next, I think it is. CQ Magazine runs the CQWW series of contests. Contests span all bands except for WRTC bands, so there's no contests on 30, 17 or 12 meters. Contests will cover HF, VHF, UHF right up into microwave bands. Some of the contests are annual one-off events, and some are in a series. For example, the UK SC or the UK club calls, the UKCC. They run throughout the year, and they're running every month. Some you can enter as a team effort from your shack. For example, the RSGB, UKASC, and UKCC contests allow you to support your local club. So if you go on to the RSGB contest website and you search down, you'll find the Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club mentioned, because anytime I put a log in, I associate it with the club, and therefore the club gets featured in the list of clubs in those contests. Some contests will require you to be a member of the organisation to be able to enter a log. So that's one thing to watch out, but you'll find that in the rules. So some RSGB contests, already mentioned the UKAC. They run on VHF and UHF. There's a contest every week. So for example, next Tuesday night is the 2 metre UKAC. And then they'll go through 70 centimetres, 23 centimetres, 6 metres, 4 metres. They're short 2.5 hour contests covering all the VHF, UHF bands up to 23 sems. A lot of stations operate portable, and there's a number of stations in Northern Ireland who go out portable up onto a hilltop with a mast and an antenna, small Yagi antenna. And with 5 watts and a small Yagi, you can have contacts over many hundreds of miles at 2 metres or 70 sems if you're on top of a hill. And you will be sought after. The nice thing about the UKAC contests, and the fact that we're in Northern Ireland, so we're right out up on the top left-hand corner of the UK, is that most contacts will have a distance of several hundred miles, and they are scored in kilometres, points per kilometre. So you could have a station down in the south of England that makes 20 contacts, and maybe he's only getting 1 point per contact, and I make 1 contact, and I'm getting 500 points for that contact. So good to get out, especially in the better months, and get operational. But they run throughout the year. The RSGB also has the UKCC 80 metre contests. They run most months except for August, I believe. They're short 1.5 hour contests, CW, SSB and data modes, and good fun, nice and short. You don't have to operate for the full hour and a half if you don't want to. And you can get a lot of contacts, and 80 metres really comes alive when they're on. There's also the likes of the RSGB, VHF, UHF Field Day, 24 hours, 6 metres to 23 sems in July. The IOTA contest, 24 hours, HF contest bands, SSB and CW in July. The Commonwealth contest in March, which is 24 hours CW only. And then there's the RSGB Field Days, the SSB and the CW in June and September. And you're meant to be out portable or 24 hour contests. Some other contests, we've got the series of CQ Worldwide in the autumn. Starts next month with data, then October's SSB and November CW. Probably the 3 biggest HF contests of the year. CQ Worldwide WPX is in the spring, starting in February, running through to May. ARRL International DX contest is 48 hours in February, CW. And then SSB is about 3-4 weeks later in March. ARRL RTTY Roundup is data, now includes FT8. Runs for 36 hours from about 6 o'clock local time in the UK through to midnight on Sunday night in January. IARU contest I've already mentioned in July is 24 hours. ARRL 10 metre DX contest is a fabulous contest at the height of the solar cycle. It's the first full weekend in December, and it's really, really good fun when the band is open. And at the moment we have the Worked All Europe series. CW was at the start of August, SSB's at the start of September, and data is in November. So those are some international contests that you could think about. So each contest has rules. you need to read them and you need to understand them. Once you've read the rules, you need to decide on what you're going to do, what category you're going to enter. So you could be a single or a multi-band category. So you operate just one band or multiple bands. You could, in some of the contests, operate, it could be a single mode contest or it could be a multi-mode contest like CW and SSB. So you want to decide whether you're going to enter one or the other or both. Some contests have time categories, for example, 6 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours. And you could say, well, I only have 3 hours on a Saturday and 3 hours on a Sunday morning. Well, I'll enter the 6-hour category. And that is you making most efficient use of your time. And if you have good scores, you can be well placed in a contest in the 6-hour category. So there's lots of options there. The majority of the 48-hour contests will limit you to a maximum of 36 hours if you're a single operator. They give you a wee bit of time off. You do have to sleep at some stage during it. There are also output power categories, QRP, low power and high power. QRP is normally 10 watts or less on SSB or 5 watts on CW. Low power would be up to 100 watts, although check the rules because, for example, the RTTY Roundup, low power is categorized as 150 watts. And then high power is normally anything above 100 watts up to your maximum allowable in your country. Another option is unassisted or assisted. So that means, did you get help? And the help they're talking about is things like CW readers or DX cluster or CW skimmer, etc., where it's finding spots, finding stations for you to work. So if you're using any of those assisted tools, then you want to enter the assisted category. If you're not using any of them, then you enter the unassisted category. Finally, you need to understand how the contest is scored. There's no point making lots and lots of contacts if you're not getting the best bang for your buck. So contests are scored with points and multipliers, and we're going to look at that next. Scoring. So as I mentioned, each contest is scored differently. Normally, the further the contact is away, the more points you get. So normally on HF, all of Europe might score 1 point, but outside Europe, you might score 3 points per contact. Some of the contests have different points depending on which band you operate on. So if you operate on the low bands or 10 meters, you might get more points. Some of the contests actually encourage you to operate during the night. The UKEI contest, I believe, gives extra points if you operate between something like 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. It's to encourage people to get on during the night. On VHF, they're normally scored per kilometre. It's one of the advantages in living in GI that if you work the south coast of England, you automatically get 500 or 600 points. Multipliers. Normally, each new country would be a multiplier. It depends on the contest. For an example, in the WPX contests, each new prefix is a multiplier as well. So if I work on MI0 and MI1 and MI3 and MI5 and MI6 and MI7 and all the GI versions as well, they're all classed as multipliers. So worth checking that out in the rules. Scoring is normally the total points multiplied by the total number of multipliers. So if you make lots of contacts but you don't get lots of multipliers, your score is going to be low. So it's always a good strategy to watch out for multipliers. And if you see multipliers, try and get them because they're building your points up quite substantially. One of the things about proper contest logging software, and you can use any logging software to log a contest, But contest logging software gives you advantages, and one of those is it will tell you your score as you're going along. It can tell you a lot of other things as well, as I'll try to show you in the software. Choosing the right category to enter. You need to identify your strengths. What band is your antenna best on? Do you have, for example, a 20-meter dipole or a 15-meter dipole up? Or do you have a 10-meter Yagi? You know, that's going to be your best antenna then, you know, as opposed to a G5RV or an 80-meter dipole, which on some bands is going to work well, but on other bands isn't going to work as well. So if you can get single band antennas, it helps. So you want to try and identify, if you're going for a single band entry, which band you have your best antenna on. You then need to decide, do you want to use the cluster? If you do, then your assisted category. Your power option is next. Less than 10 watts is QRP on SSB, normally 100 watts or less for low power. Anything above 100 watts would be high power. Finally, if it's a multi-mode contest, do you want to go CW or SSB, or maybe both? Split your time, 6 hours on CW, 6 hours on SSB, say. So if the contest has a time category, you want to look at that as well. If it fits your schedule, then no point entering a 24-hour contest that has a 6-hour category if you can only devote 5 hours of time to it. Enter the 6-hour category. You're going to score better. So when you've looked at all those options, you pick your option of what you're entering wisely. Radios. Any modern radio with computer control will work really well. More expensive radios will work better than cheaper radios, but you know, most modern radios are very good. And unless you have very, very big antennas like multi-element Yagis, you're not going to have a lot of issues on receive. So any modern radio will work. It doesn't have to be the latest make and model, the latest all singing, all dancing radio. When I started contesting in 2002 properly, I had an old Kenwood TS450. It didn't have a connection. You could connect it to the computer. I didn't have the connection, so I didn't have any computer connection. One of the really useful things, and they don't have to be expensive, is a foot switch connected to the radio. It means your hands are free. You've got 2 hands to then log the contacts and do all the typing and move the mouse if you need to. It's a lot better than trying to use a fist mic and type one-handed. A headset or headphones with a boom mic works really well. They don't need to be expensive. It doesn't have to be costing you hundreds of pounds or hundreds of dollars. If it's set up properly and matched to the radio, it will work well. It leaves your hands free. You can also use a boom mic so that you again, you're hands free. The whole thing is being hands free. You're not having to pick up something and hold it to transmit. And if you're using something like a boom mic, then get a pair of headphones. The advantage with headphones is that they isolate you from the surrounding noise. That allows you to concentrate better, and it's easier than trying to listen to a signal out of a speaker. Especially in noisy, crowded conditions, you want to be able to pick out signals clearly. So headphones or a headset really does that. The guys that operated the contest in 2018 down at the club, we had a headset. Everybody used a headset, and it was a lot better than trying to use a desk mic and type at the same time. So that's my thoughts on it. Antennas wise, they don't need to be fancy. Back in 2002, I was using a 10-meter delta loop hung up off the mast. The top of it was up at about 28 feet. The bottom of it was probably at about 15 feet. Fed with a length of coax with a matching stub. and I was working all over the place because 10 meters was open and it was in good shape. A dipole would have done the same thing. It's an efficient radiator. Verticals, if you have the space and you have a quiet location, will work well. Loops work well. Dipoles work well. Multi-band wires will work, but they're a compromise. They're good for multi-band entries, but you want to try to be as efficient as possible. And if you can get up an antenna for a single band, it will work better than a multi-band antenna. If you have an HF beam, wow, that's excellent. You're going to make more contacts on the higher bands. On VHF, you will definitely need some sort of a beam antenna and a rotator to get long distance under flat conditions on SSB on 2 meters or 70 sems. You basically have to see what space you have and what you can get into that space. And provided you've got neighbors that allow you to get up antennas, try to keep them within your own space. But if you've got good neighbors, it makes all the difference. So as was said a few weeks ago on a previous talk, a bottle of champagne and a box of chocolates, I think it was, can sweeten the path. If you have a few well-placed trees, that's great. You can get wire antennas up. And as Laurie said last week, he's using all wire antennas and having great success in his backyard. And so if you've got trees, they're a wonderful resource. Computer ideally needs to be a Windows-based computer. Even an old Windows 7 laptop will do, although I wouldn't recommend it for security reasons. But it doesn't need to be a new top-of-the-range high-spec computer. An older computer will do the job. You need to get a way of interfacing the computer to the radio that at least gives you CAT control, computer control. If you can get PTT control, and a lot of the modern radios will do this for you because they're using a USB connection, then that's great. If you're interested in CW, a way of keying the radio on CW so that the computer logging software can do the keying for you, makes life easy. And if you've got that USB interface or a way of getting audio in and out of the radio to the computer, then you can do things like a voice keyer on transmit on SSB, you can decode CW, or you can do data modes. Finally, we get to the software. As I mentioned previously, there's a lot of logging software out there, and some of them give you options for doing contests and some of them don't. Dedicated contesting software will give you a lot of options that you won't get in standard logging software. And we're going to look at some of those with N1MM. But there's a number of contest logging packages. The one I have used and still use is N1MM. There's DXlog, which is very good and very popular. There's TR4W, which I think might be paid for, and I'm not sure about WinTest. And there is an EI station, blanking on his call sign. I think it's EI5SD. And he does SD log, which covers quite a few of the contests as well. So that's computing. So what do you do a few days before the contest? Well, you want to get on the air and make some contacts. That will allow you to judge what propagation is doing and what bands are open and how long they're open for. What can you hear? Where can you work? It goes into that decision to decide on whether you're going to go single band or multi-band. So for example, myself, as the sunspot cycle improved through 2010, 2011, 2012, I was entering multi-band entries into the contests. So I was operating on all the contest bands on HF. As we got into 2013, 2014, 10 meters was really good. So I changed and I started going 10 meter entries only. And that worked out really well. I was able to dedicate all my time to 10 meters. It opened at about 7 in the morning and closed about 7 at night. I was able to get a full night's sleep. Great. If I was doing a multi-band entry, I would have to be up during the middle of the night to try and work long distance on 80 meters and top band. So it made for an easier life. A lot of DX stations will be testing before the big contests, and they're easy to work because they'll be out there running a frequency and testing their software, testing their skills, getting ready for that contest. You want to test all your equipment, your radios, your antennas, your computers, make sure your software is up to date. For example, N1MM updates almost weekly with fixes, and it's an automatic process. So it'll tell you there's an update, you click OK, and away it goes. You can prepare for big contests by doing small, short contests, the likes of the UKAC or the UKCC contests. If you're looking to enter something like CQ Worldwide CW or ARRL International CW, then you want to do CW practice. And there are some very good simulators out there for practicing contest scenarios on CW from the computer. You never need to actually go on the air. But what you'll hear before the big contests is a lot of the big stations operating CW and SSB. But you want to practice, listen to the bands, see what's open. You know, a couple of days before the contest, 10 meters is open. Oh, that's a good indication that it'll be open that weekend maybe. And I'll do a multi-band entry, you know, that sort of thing. For the week before, 10 meters, 15 meters is closed. Okay, well, maybe I'll concentrate on 20 meters. You know, make a decision based on your equipment, your antennas, your time, and what the bands are doing, and then go with that. So now N1MM. Why N1MM? Well, it's established software. It's been about for well over 20 years, I think. It runs Windows only. It supports the vast majority of contests. When I checked, it was upwards of 500 different contests that are in there by default, that you don't have to do anything. And if it doesn't support it out of the box, someone has worked out how to get it to support it, and they have switched that on for you, and you can go in, follow quick instructions, and get it operational. It supports most modes used in contests. So if you're doing data modes, CW, SSB, they're all there. They all have a way. FT8, they all plug into it in some way or form. It's really good software. It's very, very solid. They rewrote it quite a few years ago now, and it's well developed. There's a lot of developers working on it. There's a lot of information out there on it, and there's some very good YouTube videos. And if you get stuck, there's always somebody who uses it to ask. Where do you get it? You can Google N1MM, or you can go to their website, which is n1mmwp.hamdocs.com. So that's that. What I want to do now is see if anybody has any questions maybe, and then we'll go into a bit of a demo to show you what it can do. If that's okay, Dave, if you want to unmute, and I'll...
Yeah, absolutely, George. People, if you do have any questions, you can unmute yourselves now and feel free to ask George the hardest question you can think of.
If I can find out how to stop sharing. It's hidden for me. Ah, there's it. Okay, any questions?
One thing, George,
Yes.
Stanley here. You talk about that N1MM system. One thing you didn't mention, do you have to pay for it?
No, it is completely free. Most of the logging software, whether it's standard logging software or it is contest logging, is free. It's open source. There are some packages that you do pay for, but the majority of them that you'll find on the internet are free.
The thing to do is get it and practice with it. Okay.
Get it, try it out, and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, there's always another one to...
Not the kind of question you wanted, but still.
No, you're okay. No, it's a very good question, actually. It's free, as are most of the logging software packages out there.
Thank you. And thanks for the chat. Very nice.
No problem. Andrew?
Hi, George. It's interesting that the N1MM is Windows only. I mean, if it's open source, you would think in 20 years somebody would have ported it to Linux, or from, because I like running on Linux. I've got everything working with Linux. So are there equivalents or out there?
Well, I haven't looked. There is a logging package for Linux, at least one.
Yeah.
I've never used it, so I don't know.
Right.
Back in the day when I started to put my log onto computer, and at that stage I had my HF log. I had about 1900 QSOs from 2000 or from 1983 up to about 1998. It was all paper logged, and I started to type it up because I came across computer logs, and I thought, oh right, okay, this would be interesting. And over a period of about a year, I slowly typed the log up into the software, and then started using it. And now I'm sitting with, I think, almost 50,000 QSOs in the log since 2000 odd. But I've gone through a number of different software login packages because I downloaded one, tried it, liked it, used it for a while. If there's something better came along, I downloaded that and used that. For contesting, there was one which was Windows based, which was K9CT, sorry, DOS based, which was K9CT, which everybody seemed to use in the 90s. And then I came across N1MM in the early 2000s, and I just stuck with it. Don't know why it hasn't been ported to Linux.
It seems to be quite a standard format. Is it ADI or ADIF?
Yeah, they all export in the same format. So I'll do a contest in N1MM, then I'll export it from N1MM in ADIF format and import it into my normal logging software, which then links up to Logbook of the World and Club Log and stuff like that.
George.
Yes.
Sorry, do you think that contest will go forward in 22 in Italy because of the coronavirus? Do you think that'll still, or is that a no-no or what?
Don't know. It'll be scheduled to go ahead, but whether it happens or not is another matter. Depends whether they get a cure for coronavirus.
You don't know where it'll be operating out of?
Not specifically, other than Italy. If you go onto the WRTC website for 2022, it'll tell you exactly where it is. So, anything else? Okay.
George, one question.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button there. You said earlier on, I hear a lot of contests going on, and I never shout in because I think replying to them cheats them from another person who's going to. So you're talking about putting the log in for somebody who's not actually taking part in the contest.
Yeah.
But here's somebody shouting in and answers back to them, and they give you a serial number and all the rest of it. What's the procedure there? And is there a procedure there that you can put a log in, as a non-contest contestant, if you like?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to do, if you switch on Saturday afternoon, for example, and you hear a contest on 20 meters, there's a number of different websites that will list all the contests. And you can go and have a search, find out what contest it is, find out what the format for the contest is. The default is normally 5 and 9. The software is pre-programmed to enter 5 and 9 on transmit for you. And it's not so much about giving an accurate report as it is about making as many contacts with as many stations and getting as many multipliers as possible in the period of time that the contest runs for. So listen about, you hear that, for example, the Israeli Amateur Radio Society runs a contest every year, and it's either your age or the year you got licensed. I can't remember which. So you'll hear the person repeating the report, you're 5 and 9, 79, over and over again, Well, unless you ask them what it is, you're not going to know what the 79 represents. If you go off and look up the contest rules, you'll find out straight away that it's the person's age or it's the year they were licensed or whatever. And there's some good websites. I can get you the links of the websites that will list all the contests and the rules associated with them, or it'll take you off to that society's or organization's website with the rules.
So what happens then? Sorry, go ahead.
If you enter a log, you can mark it as a check log, so it won't be considered for the contest. But if you're in a situation where you get on and make one contact with one station who is entering a log, and you don't make any other contacts in the contest, then there's the possibility that the scoring software will look at that and go, well, that person only worked that station. Nobody else worked them. So maybe they got the call sign wrong, and it could be marked down. If you get on and you make 5, 10, 15 contacts, your call sign will appear in some other logs. So the software will go, oh, right, well, MI6XGZ was in 4 logs. Okay, that's probably a valid call sign then.
Okay, but the other thing is, then you hear them give a serial number out.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not entering the competition, do I need to create a serial system?
If you're not entering the contest but you're giving away some points, you need to give them back a serial number, which will always start
Okay.
001.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll share my screen here and we'll take a look at the software.
George,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
is there much checking? You say it's done online by the computer. Does it check everything, or how deep
There's
is
somebody
the
out there's
checking?
noise in the background. I can't. Say again, Stan.
You talk about checking the logs that are submitted.
Yes.
That will be done automatically by the computer. How deep does it go into the checking?
It will compare every contact. It will compare all the logs that are submitted against each other. So it will check against every log submitted.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the checking that the stations are true rather than if the QSOs are right or not. So that's what I was wondering. So there's a fair bit of automatic checking that goes on.
Yeah, used to be. I remember back in the early days when I was involved with the Mid Ulster Club, we were very involved with 2-meter and 70-centimeter contests, and we would have operated down in the Mournes for the UHF Field Day, for the 2-meter trophy contest at the start of September. We would have been down, and everything was paper logged. And in those days, you would have written it into a book, and then you would have gone home and you would have transcribed it into the official log sheets. And this took weeks, depending on how many contacts we had. And then once you had that done, that was all posted away to the organisers of the contest. And then somebody had to sit and go through all those paper logs. Because it's all computer generated now, and there's a file that you upload to the organisers, they have computer software in the background that's looking at that. For example, the CQ Worldwide contests, they used to have upwards of, I think it was 2 months maybe, of a window for you to enter your log. It's now down to something like 5 or 7 days because they don't really accept paper logs anymore. It's all computer logged.
Thank you.
That. But it's an automated process. Okay, I'll just share my screen here again. So, get the computers woken up. I'm just running this on virtual machines within my own computer. So, just wait till this starts up. So if you go to Google, N1MM, very first link is the N1MM logging software. Click on the link, will take you to it. You go to downloads, program files, and you want the full install. And then it says click here. Takes you to the full install. The last full install was built in June of this year. Click on that. Click download. Click save. And that's it downloading. Should drop into your downloads folder. Just wait for it to download here. So if I go into downloads, I now have the software sitting there for me. Just need a double click to run it. Click yes. Click next, 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 install. Pretty well normal process for installing it. Click next, finish. It does this every time you install or upgrade. This is the revision history for the software, what was changed, when it was changed, and it just pops up and tells you can close that. It wants to save all the work and reboot the computer, which is normal. So we'll click OK and we will restart. Oh dear, there's updates. Hopefully it'll be quick enough.
Would you like me to sing a song in between, George?
No, this is pretty quick. It should be back up shortly. So that's us back up again. So you can see on the desktop that I have two icons. I've got N1MM Logger Plus and I've got N1MM Rotator. So we'll launch N1MM Logger Plus. You get a wee splash screen at the start. And because this is the first time we've installed it, it wants to know, do we want to convert a database, create a new one, or open an existing one? Because it's the first time we want to create. And then we click OK. And it's just going to prompt us a couple of times here as it goes through this. And that should be it starting. It's going to ask you to enter your station info. Now, this little window is the firewall within Windows asking, will it allow N1MM out? Because N1MM does software updates automatically, it needs to get out to the internet, so we will allow access. And it wants to create the database here, and it's giving us a suggested name of ham for the database. If you want it to stick out, you could change it to your call sign. That's what I normally do. Click save, and it set the database up, and it now wants us to set up our station info. So it'll open a window. So the first thing you want to do is you want to put your call sign in. Your name. I'm not going to fill this out completely, but I'll put in my locator. And you'll see when I put in my locator, it populates the latitude and longitude. You want to tell it what CQ zone you're in, and we're in CQ zone 14. 14. And we're in ITU zone 27. And it's your license class, which would be advanced or foundation or intermediate. You can then put details of your transmitter receiver. So, and the power output, 100 watts, the antenna, and your height, the antenna height, and height above sea level, your ARRL section. If you are in the US or Canada, you would put in your ARRL section there. If you're outside the US or Canada, then you put DX in. We're not worrying about Rover. You could put in your club if you wanted, and you can put in your email address. I'm just going to leave that blank. Fill it out. Not going to put any more in there for now. So click OK, and that's the basic setup. It's telling us down here that the software is 62 days old, and that there may be updates, and you can see that a window has popped up automatically to say there's a new update. Would you like to install it? The updates, sometimes it's new features that it adds. Most of the time it's bug fixes. So somebody reports that some feature did not work in a contest. The guys go off, fix it for the next one. And if you're in a contest series like the UKAC or UK CC, then you want that fix applied for the next month. So you just click OK. It will go off, download the software, update, and then it will tell you that it needs permission to install it. And you just click OK, it installs it. So there's it asking me, do I want to allow this? I'm going to say yes. Click next, click install, click finish. You've seen that before. That's all the updates that have happened since the software package was published back in June. So it tells you things that it has fixed. Close it, and your logging software is ready to use. So what we'll do now is look at some of the setup that you need to look at. And I'm just going to jump over. Oh, I clicked the wrong button there. Sorry. I'm just going to jump over to another VM that I have running, which has the software already configured, so you'll see information in it. So we've got N1MM Logger Plus here. We'll fire it up. Hang on, it's lost the connection. Give me a second. Will I just check this? I had this all set up and working at the start of the session, but unfortunately it all decided to go to sleep on me. Yeah, that's okay. I'm just making sure it's working so that I can show you it. So we'll try again. So you can see when the splash screen came up, it came up with my call sign. And this is your default screen. So the first thing you want to do before you think about entering a contest is you want to get it set up and talking to the radio. So you go into config, configure ports, mode control, win key, etc. And this screen opens. And the first one is hardware. And I have my ICOM 7300 set up here. So if you've done this for other logging software, you'll know what the settings are. So I'm using communications serial port 3. I have lots of, well, one option there on that one. On the radios, I've got lots of options for different radios. Most radios that have computer control will be in there. So I can select the radio. I tick the box for CW other, and I go into set. And in here, I set up the speed of my connection, my parity, data bits, stop bits, the ICOM number that needs to be in there for that particular ICOM radio. I have PTT via radio command and SSB and CW turned on. That means if I do something in the software, it will switch the radio on to transmit and hopefully work for me from software. Nothing else there to set up, so we'll okay that. Function keys, don't really need to change much in here unless you're doing a bit of CW contesting, where you can change the way that it sends numbers. So it'll do things like send cut numbers. So instead of sending a 0, it'll send a dash. Instead of a 1, it'll send an A, things like that. If you're interested in digital modes, you'll want to go in here and set up digital modes. Select the decoder encoder software to use with that for RTTY. Not showing that this evening, just straight simple setup for SSB here. We have paths to audio files that we can use. We can set up CW speeds, repeat times, all sorts of different things in here. If you're doing CW and you have a thing called a win keyer, it's a little hardware box that interfaces between the computer and the radio. You can set up the win keyer hardware in here. Mode control, I have that set to use the mode on the radio. So if I'm on SSB on the radio, the logging software will be on SSB. If I switch to CW, the logging software will switch to CW. I can go in and specify all my antennas here. Score reporting allows you to upload your live contest score to a couple of different websites. There's one in Russia, which is cqcontest.net. The other one is Contest Online Score. If you set it to Score Distributor Server, it will put it up to a server and then put it up to both of those. You do need a username and password for those websites, but that means you can go online and watch your score and see how you're doing against other stations in the same category in the contest. Broadcast data is only specific if you're doing a multi-operator contest, because that will broadcast the information from this station to all the others, and so they can all interconnect and talk to each other in a multi-operator environment. You can go in and configure audio devices within N1MM as well. If you were using N1MM to call CQ and using WAV files, you can go in here and set that up. And if you're doing FT8 or FT4 or some of those digital modes, you can set up how N1MM talks to WSJT. So that's basically a run through of the configuration to get the software talking to the radio. The main one really is getting the CAT control, the computer control in here in hardware, getting that radio talking to the software, and we have that set up. I mentioned SO1V, SO2V, SO2R. Here's where you would choose that option if you had a radio that, or radios that supported it. So if you were operating SO2R, had 2 radios, you would have 2 radio configs in here, and you would tick the SO2R option. And that means you could operate effectively. You can only have one transmit signal, but you'd be listening to 2 different bands at the same time. So we'll okay that. If you need to go in and change your station configuration details, you can go into the second option here in config, and you can change that. Most of the other options in here are switches that you turn on or off. For example, spot all search and pounce QSOs. That would send a spot to the DX cluster every time you work the station. So if you're on 20 meters and you're working your way up the band, you would be spotting stations every time you work them if you're connected to the cluster. CQ repeat is another one. Once you start running on a frequency, you can get CQ repeat to automatically repeat that CQ call every 5 seconds, every 3 seconds, whatever you set it up for. And the advantage of that is saves on your voice. And if you hear a station call you, then as soon as you start typing on the keyboard, it will stop repeating that and allow you to enter the contact. So lots of different options in there. So down here, we're set up for a contest. It's CQ Worldwide. We would enter the call sign into the first field. So if I got on the first station I worked was, let's make up a call sign, G9ABC. So it's red, which means it's a multiplier. Standard entry is 5959. I'm going to give him a report of 5914, which is zone 14. He'll come back to me with zone 14. N1MM will enter what it thinks should be the report that you're getting back into there. Sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right. So you always want to verify that, and then you would enter it if it's wrong, change it, and then you hit enter. That's the contact logged, and it's entered into the log up here. As it stands, you can use N1MM like that, and you don't need to switch any of the other options on. But there's some useful options. So the first one would be band map. If you switch band map on, it's detecting the band that you're on, and it's giving you a visualization of where stations are within that. And you can see that G9ABC is there. If I tune the radio, you can see that that moves. And now I work W9ABC. It's telling me that it thinks he's in zone 4. If he gives me zone 4, I hit enter, he's logged, and he goes grey here. Where this really comes into its own is if you switch on the DX cluster. So we'll turn Telnet on. I have this set up to automatically connect to the DX cluster. Takes a few seconds. And once it is on, then I can use some of these buttons. So I can use Show DX. So this is Show DX /120. It'll show the last 120 DX spots. And you will see, once it starts to come up, you'll see that there's a load of stations have appeared here in the band map. I can use the scroll key on the mouse. If I put my mouse over the band map, I can scroll in and out to get a wider view of the stations that are operating. I can also click on a station, and it will change the radio to that frequency, and the call sign is entered in above the call sign location. And if I hit tab, sorry, I think it's tab. Yeah, enter, sorry, spacebar. If I hit spacebar, it will automatically enter the call sign in and hop across to the zone. And if I work him and he gives me zone 35, then I hit enter again, and the call is logged. There's a few other things you can turn on if you're getting really into it and you're making lots of contacts. Let's move that out of the way. In fact, let's minimize it. Check is very useful. Remember I was saying about the check log? Well, as I enter call signs here, it will give me the various connotations of what I've entered. And if I miss a letter or a number, I can maybe guess what it should be and then confirm it with the station. I can also switch on the info button or info window. The info window will tell me how many contacts I've made in the last hour, the last 10 minutes. If somebody spots me on the cluster, it'll come up down below here, provided I'm connected to the cluster. And it gives you an indication of how fast you're making contacts. Score summary is a useful one. So score summary will automatically tot up my points. So you can see I've had 3 QSOs, and I've got 3, if I move the mouse out of the way, that might be better. I've got 7 points in total from the 3 QSOs, and I've got 3 zones worked and 3 countries worked, and it's giving me a score at the moment of 42. A couple of other things you can turn on. Something that's relatively new in N1MM is spectrum display. And if you have a modern radio with USB on the back and you can bring that audio, that INQ signal from the radio into the computer, and it's things like the ICOM 7300, the SDR radios from Flex and various manufacturers, radios like that. If I turn on spectrum display, it will take the PAN adapter that I see on the ICOM and it will now display it on the computer. And it will take the spots from the DX cluster and display them. And what I can do is I can adjust, it's almost like a squelch level. If you see this dotted blue line, as I move it up, call signs will eventually start disappearing because it'll only show call signs of stations that cross that barrier that are that strong. So very useful. And I can go in and I can say there's a signal there. I can click on it. So if I turn the volume up, don't know if you can hear that, I'll move the mic that direction. So he's tuning up. There's a station operating there. If I click on that station, of course, they stop transmitting as soon as I tune onto them. The other thing you can do is you can use the mouse to tune. So I'm using the mouse wheel to tune. You can also use the up-down arrow keys to tune. So I'll turn the volume down on that. I really do not need to touch the radio at all once I'm set up. I can use the keyboard. I can look at the computer and control the station from the computer. I can move quickly just by clicking on a spot, either in the band map over here or in the spectrum display. I can use the mouse wheel to tune. There's a lot of other windows you can turn on as well there, but unless you've got big monitors or multiple monitors, then you probably don't want to be doing that. One that is useful if you're using the DX cluster is the available mults and queues. So I'll open this up a wee bit more so you can see it properly. So that is going to take all the spots that are coming off the DX cluster, break them down into available multipliers that you have not worked yet, available contacts that you have not worked yet, and then give you a total per band. Where that is useful is if you're, say, operating on 40 meters at about 10 o'clock in the morning and you're watching this and you're seeing the numbers creeping up on 20 meters, that's a good indication that there's more activity on 20 meters and you want to move to 20 meters. If you suddenly see a load of activity on 10 meters with spots coming through from 10 meters, you know there's activity on 10, you can change to 10 meters. So it's all about having enough information to handle what's happening, to assess it, and then to try and make a decision. Do I move band? Do I change from one band to another? When do I change? When's a good time to change? And those things all feed into that. You can switch a lot more options on, but you know, to take part in say a UKCC on a weekday evening on 80 meters, you know, you probably don't need more than the band map and the DX cluster and the log window and the logbook, and you're away and running and be able to get operational and make some contacts, and then just add the other options in as you want to and as you think it would be useful to you. So that's a quick run through of how to install N1MM and how to use it. And as I say, there's lots of information on the web. The documentation on their website is absolutely superb, and there's lots of guys using it. You know, so ask questions. And as I say, lots of YouTube videos. Most of the techniques and stuff that I've used, I've watched the YouTube video and then gone and applied it and worked out how to do it. So that's basically the software. If I want to change band, I don't need to touch the radio. I can just go down and I can see, okay, let's go see what's on 80. I've now changed to 80 meters. and I would need to change antenna for 80 meters. Back into place, just drop something. So I'm now on the 80 meter antenna. Plug it in. So I'm now on the 80 meter antenna, and you can hear there's a G station. And I can do all the same thing. I can change there. I can pretend to work this station, Polish station, press enter. Click there, click there. You can automate it very quickly. Now, one of the other things I want to demonstrate, and I'm just going to switch band here, is and turn the volume up. These buttons down here all relate to the function keys on your keyboard. If you right click, you can go in and you can edit these buttons, edit what they do. So you have a set of commands for running and a set of commands for search and pounce. The other thing you can do if you go in there is you can save off a custom one. So if I go to import and assign, I've got one set up for the Icon 7300. So I have now assigned that 7300 file to the log. If you look, it looks a bit different. I've got these cat1 hex and these hex files. What these will do in the 7300, they will activate the voice keyer in the 7300. So if I back that off, turn the volume up. So if I, for example, go to run and I click F1.
CQ contest, Golf India 4 Sierra Juliet Quebec, Golf India 4 Sierra Juliet Quebec contest.
Okay, so it puts the radio into transmit. The radio's in transmit and it's calling CQ for me. In a long contest, and I'm talking for about an hour and a half now, your throat starts to go. Unless you take a load of breaks. Maybe you don't want to take a load of breaks, maybe you're having fun. So getting the radio to call CQ for you is very handy. So I have this set up for the CQ worldwide. So
5914
saves me having to say it. So in that case, if I was working, so I was working W0ABC, I would just press the foot switch, W9 ABC.
5914.
That's all I have to say. Computer does the rest for me. At the end of the contact,
73 QRZ Golf India 4 Sierra Juliet Quebec contest.
or if I wanted to call a station,
Golf India 4 Sierra Juliet Quebec. Golf India 4 Sierra Juliet Quebec.
so I can get the radio to transmit the message for me. Some of the guys actually take this a step further. They create audio files for every letter of the alphabet, and you will hear this in bigger contests. And you'll hear somebody sending a report, and it sounds very robotic, and it's Whiskey 0 Alpha Bravo Charlie 5914, and you go, why is he speaking like that? They've actually set up individual wave files for every letter of the alphabet, and the radio is transmitting. That could be somebody who can't speak or has a very weak voice and their throat goes after a short period of time. So I have come across that. It's an unusual one to hear the first time you hear it, and you go, what's happening there? And then you realize the logging software is actually saying everything for them, so they don't speak at all. So that's a quick run through of N1MM, how to install it, some of the things it can do. And I'll just stop the sharing here, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them and try and answer them for you. I've lost my audio. No.
Yeah, you should
George, you've left me speechless.
I thought I'd lost my audio there for a minute.
No, you had stopped as on muting, so you could shoot, but still, many thanks. It's most interesting. I need to spend the next 2 years learning how to work it.
No, if you were to use it, it wouldn't take too long. You don't need to switch all the extra options on. You take it a wee bit at a time, you know.
When you're the wrong age, it takes a long time. Thank you very much, George.
Oh, no problem, Stan.
George, see that software. Can you use that as a local log on your PC?
You can, yes.
That's an option, isn't it?
Callum, N1MM
MCX. Yeah.
uses it for all his logging. There's a number of predefined logs within it. So there's a DX log. So if I go in and I go new login database, if I go new login database and select the drop down for the log, there is a DX option, and you go in and set it up. Okay, and it allows you to store call sign, sent, received, report, name, and comment, and nothing else. That's it.
It doesn't log time.
Oh no, it'll log time and all that. That's automatic. No, all the logging software, majority of it, will all log the time automatically, the start and the finish time.
Another quick question I have for you is that what that version you showed us there? I didn't quite catch. Is that the free version?
There isn't a paid version. It is free.
Right. Okay.
There's no paid version. If anybody tries to charge you money for N1MM, they're ripping you off. It is a free software to the amateur community.
Thank you very much for the talk there, George. It's very clear. I'm going to have a look at it now.
There's lots of different logging software out there, and if you're looking just a general logging software package, there's lots to choose from. If all you want to log is call sign, report, name, and comment, then it's as good as any other one.
Would they all look through the log for previous contacts if I have that call sign?
Contest logging software will, if you work me and you're using contest logging software and you work me on 20 meters, and then 2 weeks later you work me again on 20 meters, it'll tell you that it's a dupe if it's in the same log. That's where the general logging software is better. Like I use Logger 32 for my general logging. So it will show me all the contacts that I have had with you if they're logged. Tell me the date, time.
I've seen that on some of Callum's videos when it comes up where he's worked them before.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the talk. It was great.
You're okay, John. Thank you. This is contesting software. It's primarily designed for contesting. You can use it for other things. You can use it for the expeditions. You can use it as a DX log. You know, if you want to just record a small amount of information. You know.
George,
Yes.
Jeff, GI4SJQ. Does the program have to be connected to the internet to work?
No. Does not. Doesn't. It needs the internet for updates to get the latest updates, but it doesn't need to be connected. You know, if you're not connecting it to the internet and you're entering contests, then you're entering unassisted. None of the logging software that's out there really, with the exceptions of one or two, really need connected to the internet. A lot of them give you extra functionality by connecting to the internet. So for example, I use Logger 32. If I enter your call sign, it will go and pull your details from QRZ and enter your name into the name field for me. You know, I'm playing around with Log4OM at the moment. If you have your photograph up on QRZ.com, I get your photograph along with your full name and your QRL locator, and it tells me how many miles you are away from me. So if you haven't entered an accurate QRL, there's a number of people that when I use it, I get somewhere in the middle of Belfast because they haven't entered a QRL locator. So it's defaulting to Belfast.
Also, I noticed in the setting the com port bit, there were some boxes that were filled that I didn't understand at all.
Okay.
Is there a way of finding out the information to put in those boxes?
Yeah, you will find it online, but from your radio when you set it up, if you have, say, like you have the 7300, well, you will set the speed. Now, the default speed on the 7300 is 19,000 baud from memory. So you would set that speed, and then the parity is normally no, the data bits is 8, and the stop bits are 1. So those are all sort of default settings. Normally the manual will give you those when you look them up.
All right, thank you very much.
No problem.
George, there's no doubt it's a incredible setup, and I'm sure there are loads of things that can go wrong, like in terms of, you know, getting the waterfall working, as well as you know, connecting to the radio and everything.
Yeah.
But the thing I was really curious about, because Laurie was talking about it last week, was the cluster. And how does that work? Do you need to sign up to it, and what is it actually?
Sorry, just say that again. I was.
The cluster, you talked about the DX cluster, and I just wondered what that is and how do you sign up to it and how does it work?
Okay, the DX cluster is a very large number of servers around the world which accept spots from amateurs to them. So most of them are telnet based. There's a few that have web interfaces as well that you can go on. DX Summit is one from memory that has a web interface. But the software connects via telnet to one of the DX cluster servers, and they're all interconnected. So if I'm connected normally to a DX cluster server in England. So if I hear you on the air and I put you in the log and I spot you, I'm sending a message to that DX cluster that says, your call sign, this frequency, this time, this mode was heard by me. That then gets propagated around all the DX cluster servers on the internet. And if Andrew there is sitting in Moira and he's got the software going and he's got the DX cluster running, up pops onto his screen if he's on 20 meters, say, your call sign heard by or worked by me, and it appears for him. Now, if you happen to be a rare DX station, all of a sudden you have a pile up of stations trying to work you.
Is it based geographically? Because if you were getting all the spots on 80 meters worldwide or something,
you would get all the spots, and depending on the depending on the software you're using and how it's been written, you will either get all the spots worldwide. So if I switch on to well, I'm on 10 meters at the moment, there's no spots. But in the software, if I go to 20 meters, I'll share my screen and show you. Might be easier to show you than try and describe it. I'll turn the antenna back on so that we're on the air again. There's signals. So you can see there's TZ4 in Africa, F4 in France, EI0, K8, DL in Germany, plus the ones that I put in, the fake ones. But those are local. I'm not sending spots to the cluster, okay? I'm just receiving spots from the cluster. So if I drag that up a bit, so there's a load of spots that have come down from the cluster. I'm connected to GB7DJK on the internet. I'm just going to open that window a bit. Move it around. So if I go into the settings, I can set the software here, which I have done, my call sign, and the cluster I want to connect to. But there are literally hundreds and hundreds of clusters that I can connect to. So I could connect to one in Australia or the States or South America. I can limit that in this software by EU. So it'll now only show EU clusters to connect to. But I can then go into filters, and I can set filters within this software. So I can say include spots only originating from the EU. So that means that if somebody in the States spots somebody in Australia, I won't see them. But if somebody in the EU spots somebody in Australia, I will see it. There's more likelihood of me hearing somebody in Europe hearing somebody in Australia than there is me hearing somebody that's been spotted by a guy in the States. Does that explain it, Andrew?
Yeah, no, that sounds really, really good. Yeah, thanks very much.
That's okay. You can set blacklist filters. So I don't want to receive spots from this station. You can set spots that are preferred. Like you'll probably do get stations who will erroneously put spots up that don't really exist. So you can blacklist them, or if you have somebody that you know is reliable, you can put their call signs in. So it, you can do that. You've got spot comments where you can put comments in, and you can set bands and modes. So you can set the bands and modes that you want to receive spots on. So if you're only interested in working 20 meters, why have all those other spots coming into your system? You just tell it to display the 20 meter only.
But if you're competing with others, would you want to be giving the spots away? You know what I mean?
Well, I normally don't spot stations when I work them in a contest.
Okay.
There is that option in the software to switch it on. If I'm doing searching points that I can spot every time I make a contact in searching points, but it's of no value to me if I'm running a frequency to do that.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're entering in unassisted mode, then you're not using the cluster at all. So you have it turned off. You don't use it.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay. And different software has different functionality. Logger 32 is really, really good at filtering. So I can go in and say, I want to filter only from the EU, and I don't want spots to do with RTTY or slow scan TV or anything like that. So I can control what's being fed into the system and being displayed to me. There's a PowerPoint up on the internet about Logger 32, and it talks about situational awareness for amateur radio with that logging software. And if you're into chasing DX and making long distance contacts on HF, then yeah, it's very useful to allow you to find the stations quicker and try and get in and make a contact.
Great stuff, George. Great stuff. I think you're going to be around for another few minutes anyway, if people have any other questions. But thanks for bringing to us the topic of radio sport and N1MM and everything else. It's a great logger, and hopefully soon we can all get involved in our first contest if we haven't already. So, George, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of days on the YouTube channel if anyone wants to watch again.
You're very welcome, Dave. Thank you for the opportunity to have a chat about something that I enjoy a lot, get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I would say give it a go if you haven't tried it. You never know, you might enjoy it. And the UKACs are short and they are quite a bit of fun.
Great stuff. Well, until next week, folks, 7-3, and we'll see you soon.